findings of the study were presented at a function at the college's Small Business Centre last night. The study of small businesses in Newcastle and Maitland was conducted over a 12-month period by final year students from the School of Business and Administration Studies at the Newcastle Technical College. The object of the study was to see if government schemes designed to assist small businesses are achieving their goals. Project Coordinator Paul Keogh.
From our results, we found that, as I say, a large number of small business managers were vastly unaware of the amount of government assistance. An interesting figure lies with, say, manufacture. I think we found that some 3/4 of manufacturers surveyed were totally unaware of around 80% of the schemes that were available to them. Retail wholesale was on a par with that sort of figure. Even agriculture. It was really a result that went across all industries.
Whose fault is it that small businesses are not aware of these assistance schemes?
On our findings, I think the fault lies in both areas. I think the fault lies to a certain extent with government, and it also definitely lies with the small business manager themselves. We found from our surveys that the information is definitely available to small business managers should they wish it. It requires some time and a little expense to go and find that information, but we found that from the government assistance that's available to them, it must be worthwhile to a great many people to do so.
Well, Stephen, it's probably more in the hip area and then it affects that groin area, and his action probably is conducive to that particular type of injury, where the sway of the hips and the full force of landing on hard wickets continually for probably 12 months brings about some wear and tear, but it was in the hip area and then it went into that groin area. So looks like he's recovered now. He's had a fortnight's rest, and physio down in Melbourne put him through a pretty solid test on Monday night with Greg Chappell there, so everyone's quite happy about it.
Now, who would you be placing as your main attack bowler at this stage?
Well, you're probably looking at Merv Hughes, who we seem to be talking about injuries a lot, but you're probably looking at a fellow like Merv Hughes to come along. He's quick enough, and he does a fair amount of work off the wicket. And Simon Davis from the other end, who can bowl into the breeze well enough too. And then you've got Dodamode and Tony Dodamode and Simon, who are two young all-rounders, and both of them can go away from the bat, and you then have Ray Bright. So it's a more or less an overall concept of trying to all piece it all together and see how it unfolds.
Selectors seem to be more attracted to all-rounders nowadays. I mean, Greg Matthews on the New South Wales side, and Simon, of course, in Victoria.
And it even goes into wicket-keeping now too. Most people tend to look at the wicket-keepers that have to really bat, whereas probably when I played 15 odd years ago, you were looking at a wicket-keeper who was very, very proficient in that area, and as long as he could bat in some particular way and fight it out and hold an end up, and if he finished up like Marsh, batting as well as that, well, you really had a bonus on your hands. But no, all-rounders, because of the one-day concept, I think is pretty well in the minds of a lot of people.
And while on the subject of one-day matches, I spoke with Bob Simpson and asked him his opinion on how Sheffield Shield is being affected by the one-day games.
Really, I think if anything, the players themselves prefer to play Sheffield Shield cricket, and because of that, they will enjoy it more. To them, it's the ultimate. The one-dayers are something which they understand are important. They quite enjoy the one-dayers, but they're important probably for the financial aspects of cricket rather than the long-term betterment of the game.
World Series cricket.
Well, World Series came in 7 years ago and everyone thought they introduced one-day cricket. What they did, of course, was couldn't get their World Series Test crickets off the ground, and they had to concentrate on one-day cricket and night cricket, and that really saved the World Series competition, as it were. Since then, of course, under the the arrangement between the Australian Cricket Board and the PBL, who were World Series, we've seen a concentration on one-day cricket, and I think we're programming more for the benefit of the short-term benefit of television than we are really for the long-term benefit of the game.
You think it's suffering because of that?
It's suffering. It will suffer if we're not careful. It's suffering because we're getting too much of the one-day game to the detriment of Test cricket, and all that's really happened is we've changed the watching habit of the people from watching Test to one-dayers now. But that's understandable when you think the one-day matches are all played in the prime time when people are on holidays in the January period. So it's pretty hard to say that one day is replacing Test cricket. I believe that if we scheduled the Test cricket at the times when we traditionally schedule it, we're just still getting great crowds.
Now, a name very familiar to Novocastrians is Bob Dutchy Holland, a veteran of 8 seasons, and the selectors are still sticking by him. In the test against the Windies last year, Bob had it all his way. He had a pitch which showed a lot of turn, just right for a slow leg spin bowler. That was in Sydney last year. But the Newcastle pitch is going to be hard and fast. Now, how's that going to affect your bowling, do you think?
Oh well, I'd like to see a nice, hard, fast wicket. It's good for the game and good for the batsmen to play their shots. But I don't mind bowling on the wicket when there's a bit of pace in it, particularly if I can get a bit of turn. But if there's some pace there, the ball will bounce a little more and, hopefully help me to get some wickets that way.
I suppose it's not exactly like the wicket that you played on against the West Indies in Sydney last year.
No, that's right. The wicket in Sydney last year turned a lot. It helped the slow bowlers a great deal. And that no doubt helped me to get some wickets in the test down there. The wicket in Newcastle won't be like that. There won't be the wide turn that the slow bowlers were getting in Sydney last year, but still it's a very good cricket wicket in Newcastle.
Now, the New South Wales Sheffield team has got 3 of its players with the Rebels in South Africa.
Yes, that's correct. There's 3 players that might well have been in the team, but with 3 replacements, of course. 2 new opening batsmen, Mark Taylor and Mark Waugh. They're only 20-year-olds, but they're excellent players. I saw them in Tasmania last year, basically for the first time. And Greg Dyer, the wicketkeeper, who's not really new to first-class cricket. He's actually playing in probably his 5th or 6th game now, because he played in some games last year. When Steve Rixon was in the test team. But those players are very adequate replacements.
Well, for you, come tomorrow week, it's up to Brisbane for the test against New Zealand.
Yes, that's right. That's a nice surprise to learn of my inclusion in the team to go up there. Played in the test there last year, and I'll look forward to this one next week.
Victoria resumed this morning at 7 for 270, 38 runs ahead of the New South Wales first innings. It was paceman Dave Gilbert who raised New South Wales hopes early in the piece when he bowled Victorian captain Ray Bright in the 4th over play for 39. Merv Hughes came to the crease to join Mike DiMartina, who was handing out a few lessons to the bowling attack. Hughes wasn't quite up to the task and was caught behind for 8 off the bowling of Jeff Lawson. Running out of partners, DiMartina carried on with the task, but he too fell to Lawson, caught in the gully by Murray Bennett, just 2 runs short of his half-century. Victoria had added a valuable 38 runs in the morning session, and New South Wales trailed by 76 runs. Opener Mark Taylor, who scored an impressive 77 in the first innings, failed with the bat, falling for just 7, caught Watmore bowled O'Donnell. Mark Waugh followed closely behind, bowled by Merv Hughes for 4 runs, and at lunch New South Wales were in poor shape at 2 for 21. Test paceman Simon O'Donnell picked up his 2nd wicket of the innings, with Dirk Wellham trapped leg before for 22. The task of saving face for New South Wales was left to Peter Clifford and Greg Matthews. Clifford had several lives, with Victoria missing definite chances. At tea, Clifford was leading the way on 49, with Matthews playing a solid backup innings.
offender is described as Australian, 55 to 60 years old, 175 centimetres tall, slim to medium build, short grey hair, thin-faced and green eyes. He was wearing a yellow raincoat, a white cotton hat and grey work trousers at the time of the robbery on Friday afternoon, October the 25th. The offender was last seen walking east along Elder Street, Lambton. An undisclosed large amount of money was stolen.
Scott Derwin is the local spokesman for the Australian Small Business Association and a past national vice president of the organisation. He is also a successful solicitor with 18 employees and says small businesses will suffer from yet another wage rise.
Mark, I don't think we'll be very happy generally with the decision. I don't think we're surprised. Probably we've come to expect with these decisions that the full amount will be passed on, which has happened again today. However, I think we are going to be bitterly disappointed. It's going to make it much more difficult for small business to survive, and certainly I think we are disappointed following the Treasurer's announcement in the budget statements that he would be supporting a discounting of the in this wage case plus the next one. So we'll be disappointed that he hasn't stuck by that promise.
Manufacturers are unsurprised by the decision and say the increase will only make them even less inclined to employ new people.
Of course, it's a complete disincentive when an employer realises that each 6 months he's going to be looking down the barrel of a major increase like this, and we're looking at, on this occasion, at about $15 a week per employee. Obviously, the cake can only be split so many ways, and therefore there's going to be a complete reluctance to employ new labour if the cost structure is such that it just becomes completely prohibitive.
The first phase of the project to improve the standard and capacity of the treatment plant was launched with much fanfare at the Burwood Beach site. The member for Charlestown, Richard Face, detonated the first explosion in the shaft where a new outlet tunnel is to be built. The new submarine tunnel will replace the existing outfall pipe and will extend at least 1.5 kilometres out to sea. President of the Hunter District Water Board, Alan McLaughlin.
The first part is sinking the shaft, which is behind me. That goes down about 80 metres into the rock underneath the coal seam. Then they'll drive a tunnel 1.9 kilometres out into the ocean. There's a bend in that, and it takes the final diffuser area out 1.5 kilometres off the beach.
With the completion of the new outfall pipe, the Hunter District Water Board is confident there will be a significant improvement in water quality at beaches to the north and south of Burwood. The remaining parts of Stage 1, the upgrading of the existing pumping station and construction of new preliminary treatment facilities are expected to be completed by 1988.
On the understanding that the government would provide the building and the staff. The building has been completed, but there's still the question of staffing.
What we're seeking is the other staff that are needed to provide a comprehensive service in the Hunter region, and that is more staff for chemotherapy, in palliative care, for CAT scanning and diagnostic services, and also inpatient beds.
So what will happen if the necessary staff is not provided?
Well, the hospital will have a real problem. The staff of the hospital and the hospital as a whole will try as positively as we can to respond to that situation, but we recognise that not all the needs are going to be able to be met if that's the situation. We've got to meet the needs of children and mothers, other adult patients, accident victims, as well as cancer patients. And the money we have available just won't stretch to provide all the services those people need, so some things we'll miss out.
Health Minister Ron Mulock will officially open UMed 2 in less than 2 weeks, and he's sure to face a barrage of criticism from people who won't settle for a second-rate cancer unit.
The Port Waratah coal loader was the first stop for the four-man Dutch delegation who were in Australia to examine our port facilities. In comparison to Rotterdam, Newcastle's port is tiny. Rotterdam boasts 40 kilometres of docks, wharves and terminals, making it the largest and busiest port in the world. However, the recession has left Rotterdam's facilities underused, so the Dutch came here on a fact-finding mission with the eventual aim of contracting new business for the port. The delegation visited the Kooragang coal loader, where they held talks with General Manager Dennis Stone and the Federal Transport Minister Peter Morris. Rotterdam Port Commissioner Dr. Raoul van Dunen said that Newcastle has an opportunity to increase exports of coal and other products to Europe through Rotterdam. He said Dutch investigations had shown that for shipments over 40,000 tonnes, it is cheaper for Australia to export through Rotterdam and then transship to the rest of Europe rather than export straight to the customer. This is due to the low cost of moving products by barge on the Rhine River. In comparison, the cost of transporting within Australia is very high. Up to 1/3 of the coal export cost from Newcastle is incurred transporting the coal from the mine to the ship. Chairman of the Rotterdam Port Promotion Council, Hans Porfine, suggested Australia will have to lower its domestic transport costs to become competitive in Europe. Nevertheless, the Dutch are confident that an export deal can be arranged, and a Rotterdam industry delegation plan to visit Australia next year to begin negotiations.
The 3.5-hectare site in Douglas Street, Wallsend, was formerly occupied by the Leonora Glassworks factory. The County Council selected the site because of its proximity to its existing works depot and because it does not require rezoning. Today, a ceremony was held to mark the start of site works for the construction of the new complex. The County Council's decision to move its administration from Nesca House in the heart of the city to Wallsend has not been without its detractors. However, County Council Chairman John Jobling and the project manager, Sabimo Proprietary Limited, today expressed confidence that the move will be more cost efficient than expanding in the city centre. The complex itself has been designed within an office park environment. To symbolise the extensive landscaping that will be undertaken, 2 trees were planted on the site. According to Councillor Jobling, the County Council will also push to upgrade adjacent roads.
Yes, indeed we are. We made provision for this in the early stage, and we're also aware that Newcastle City would wish us to do something. We'll be putting traffic lights onto the major intersection to control the flow there, and we'll be doing certain other things that the city will require. So yes, we'll be good corporate citizens there.
The Shortland County Council also announced this afternoon the names of the 2 local firms that have successfully tendered for preliminary work on the project. They are Ward Civil Engineering. Their contract, worth in excess of $100,000, is to demolish the existing building. Darracon Engineering will carry out the bulk earthworks and excavations. Their contract is worth in excess of $150,000.
Heavy rain on Thursday night made it not only a little muddy, but also very steamy at the 92nd Annual Dungog Show. Not that either interfered in any way with Friday morning's program. In the main ring, all the attention was focused on horse events. There were lead classes featuring truly fine equine examples and a rigorous and exciting show jumping competition. There was dressage, a highly disciplined sport, and in stark contrast, the more Australian and action-packed camp draft. As with most other Hunter Valley shows this spring, not only was there a high standard of horsemanship displayed, but also keen competition with riders travelling from far and wide to participate. While some of the horses were proven champions, there were 1 or 2 just beginning their show careers, like this little Palomino Arabian foal, Windsor Park Gem, who had collected ribbons at Gosford prior to putting in another starring performance at Dungog. Away from the main ring, another feature of the show was the art exhibition, which drew a record 195 entries from artists as far away as the Upper Hunter, Newcastle and Sydney. The best watercolour was Margaret Crichton's The Olgas, while the best oil and best painting of the show was Linda Taylor's Camellias, which according to the Earl of Gosford, who adjudicated the display, would hold its own in any art show in the nation. The 1985 Mutara prize-winning painting, Barry Farrell's The Artist's Models, was there too, as well as this one called Waratah and Bottlebrush by Garron Brown, which had the distinction of being the most expensive on offer at $3,000.